He's done it! 4! Balotelli! Aguero! Cahill! Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again! What a goal by Tim Cahill!
Hello everybody and welcome to the Premier League Nightclub podcast. My name is Damon and with me I have the Woodra. Woody, we're back for the final episode of the Nightclub Minis. And so this is the sixth one, and it's safe to say that we've probably never been more excited for a Nightclub Mini.
No, I think this is probably going to be the best one that we have going on the pod, and definitely probably the one that we're most excited for, because it's something that is going to bring out some serotonin for everyone, make everyone laugh a bit, and it's definitely made us laugh looking into what we've got to talk about as well.
Mate, to be fair, the word structure does not come to mind when you look at the research and planning done for this particular episode. Like, you'd have to say the Nightclub podcast is one of the more structured and, routine-based podcasts going around, but this one is seriously all over the place, and I actually don't know where we'll be 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, and 20 minutes from now. So I'm very excited to see how this one pans out. But before we get stuck into any of that, just what have you been up to, Woodrow? Because from an outside perspective, it does sort of look like that all we're doing is either playing COD, working on the pod, or going for a run. And, if there's anything else going on with your life, I'd like to know, because that's pretty much all I'm doing.
Yeah, low-key, we are neglecting the girlfriends a bit, I think, to do those three things. But no, I feel as if, especially down here in Melbourne, our government's pretty switched on about it, so we're lucky in that restrictions look like they may be maybe eased up a little bit in the next week or so, just because we are, per se, flattening the curve. But until that happens, I guess, Damon, that's really all we can do, is just go for a run, play a bit of COD, neglect the girlfriends, and work on the pod. So, I don't know. It's not really that much is changing in between pod to pod, but I know that this week is definitely a huge week for us.
Yeah, you're not wrong. This is probably the biggest week of the Premier League Nightclub podcast in history, which we touched on last week. But of course, this is one of two episodes coming out this week. This is coming out on a Tuesday. The next one coming out on a Thursday with Cam Devlin, an Aussie Uncovered third installment of that series. So very, very excited for that. And of course, the return of Sammy this week as well, which I know is probably up there with the Aussies Uncovered interview as well. It's just the anticipation is massive to see what he's been up to and what he can bring to the table.
Mate, I reckon we should just make a promo vid for Sam as another Aussie Uncovered. He probably deserves one, really.
We could fill it in with the bloopers, mate, of all the bloopers we've had over the 44 episodes we've done.
Oh, geez, that would be something to listen to. But Damo, nevertheless, let's get stuck into some footballing news. Because this week there was some huge revelations as the Eredivisie officials decided to cancel the Eredivisie season, which was absolutely massive, and that means that Ajax and AZ Alkmaar are going to take the Champions League spots. However, relegation has been suspended for a season, so no one is going to be relegated and no one is going to be promoted, even though I'm pretty sure in the second league, whoever was atop was 13 points clear. Damo, what's your take on that?
Mate, I did see the manager of that club, and forgive me, the club escapes my mind at the moment, but yeah, they weren't happy about it at all, and it'd probably be a similar situation here in England. If that were to happen, Leeds would be absolutely fuming, and we know their situation and how much they need to get promoted. But yeah, just in terms of Dutch football, I think, I don't think that many other footballing nations will go the same path. They might go a similar path, but to not award a title, I just can't see it happening here in England. I was about to say here in England, but no, I just can't see it happening in England. It's something that, given our situation in the Premier League, it's a little bit different from the Eredivisie in that the league is pretty much summed up, and we've spoken about it so many times on this podcast, but you just can't see the league title not being handed to Liverpool, whether we go back and play more or not. But on that, playing again or not, June 8 looks to be a date that could mean something to Premier League football fans.
Yeah, and a lot of news has been circulating as well in the last few days about this potential June 8 return and coming out of lockdown. We know that the league bosses are in in chats with the UK government, seeing what the realms of a return would look like for the EPL. But we do know that if the EPL was to return, it would be played in select stadiums, so not all stadiums would be utilised. And some 450 odd games would only be crammed into maybe 2 months. 55 days is being talked. So if we're going to see it come back, we're going to see a compressed little second bit of the season, and plenty of games being played in the next 2 months to try and get the season out of the way. But I tell you what, if it doesn't go through, I think it's really unfortunate, because there's always going to be an asterisk for whoever gets relegated or whoever gets the title at the end of this season.
Can you imagine the logistical nightmare if they do play the amount of games they're talking in the short space of time for this podcast? Like, it is going to be next level. I mean, I wouldn't say we struggled, but we definitely had to knuckle down around that December-January period when there were midweek games. We're probably going to have to be doing that every week. So we're definitely going to have to set up some sort of structure which is manageable, because as much as we love doing the pod, I don't think we can do 3 or 4 a week. We thrive on quality and not necessarily quantity, which might be a case in the future. So, Woodrow, until then, I think, steer away from the serious stuff. We all know what's going on, but let's get stuck into the point of the Nightclub Mini Ep6, the final episode of funny and shocking moments.
Suarez to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written.
Unbelievable!
Yes, let's do it, Damo. We've been so excited since we decided on this topic last week, and what we want to do here is bring some of the most funny / shocking moments of the last maybe 20 years from the Premier League, or at least moments that we've seen, because these are the ones that stick out for us as some of the most memorable moments and some of the funniest things that have made us really crack up laughing. And Damo, although we'll start off with one that we didn't actually see, because we'll get it out of the way, and that is the Eric Cantona Kung Fu kick on a fan.
Absolutely iconic. Like, it doesn't matter if you were born, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you still know exactly what happened on this day and what were the ramifications. It's just unbelievable to think that this actually happened. Like, today, it's just almost impossible. I think from this incident alone, the way football stadiums are now set up, there's even more of a space between the end of the pitch and the fans. Just the way this can happen. I mean, it definitely left people speechless at the time, but it leaves me speechless now. I mean, Gary Pallister, I think he said, "I was one of the only players who didn't run over. I just stood there in disbelief. I was in shock at what I just witnessed." And I think it's a fair assessment of the situation. Like, I remember Roy Keane ran over, just absolutely fuming at what had happened. There was some unbelievable scenes, and you can see fans speaking at the time and like getting interviewed, and they're just like, "Oh, I saw Eric Cantona's foot coming towards us," and like it's just nuts to think that actually happened.
Yeah. King Cantona was on another level that day, and of course he followed up the Kung Fu kick with a bit of a left-right good night on a fan as well. So you definitely should have hopped in the ring. It was so funny. Even though we didn't see it, I reckon every football fan would have seen this footage at least 5 or 6 times over their supporting careers, because it's just something that you never see replicated, is someone jumping into the crowd to take an opposing supporter out. It's just unbelievable. But Damo, let's move on to the next one, and that is the ball kid that leaves Gerrard absolutely hanging in the tunnel.
Mate, this one is one of my favourites. Back in 2006, so 14 years ago, Jake Nichols, a young mascot for Chelsea in a Chelsea v Liverpool game, goes to shake Gerrard's hand, but as Gerrard puts his hand out, he puts his hand away, blows him a raspberry, and just does the cockatoo little thing in front of him. And Gerrard just looks absolutely stunned. And see, alright, the moment itself is unbelievably funny, but I think the bigger thing is, like, it comes up every year. So, like, Chelsea, even Liverpool Facebook and Twitter pages, they post it as well. And Gerrard even mentions it in his autobiography and says it's the only time he ever smiled pre-game in the tunnel. And apparently, well, this kid's now probably, I think, in his early 20s, and he's playing reasonably high-level football, and he actually got a copy of the book And on the page where Gerrard talks about it, there's a picture of the incident as well. You know how you can see that quite often in sports autobiographies. They have picture sections. He actually got Steven Gerrard to sign it, and they had like a little reunion. And you know, the guy, Jake Nichols, even today talks about how his mates bring it up all the time. Like, imagine having that under your belt. Yeah. What an absolute tale for the boys.
Mate, that would have been elite. And Damo, we know you probably... Did you read that autobiography?
Well, look, me being me, I think I've attempted to read maybe 5 to 10 sports autobiographies, and very rarely do I finish them. I always get like halfway, 3/4 of the way through, and not to say they're bad or anything, but you know, my attention span isn't, you know, with the greatest, so I do struggle to finish a book. As you know, Woody, when we did Year 12 English together.
Mate, I was gonna say, you're not really much of a reader. You're more of a picture book sort of guy, so. For you to say that you read the autobiography, I was like, oh, I don't know about this one. Nothing will be stick in my memory more than you trying to read Shakespeare, us being 17, 18-year-olds and absolutely stuttering every word in front of our whole class.
To be fair, it didn't help with you in my ear for a good semester. You know, the pressure knowing that you were bearing down my neck looking at me the whole time didn't make it any easier. But hopefully, now that I've done this pod for 45 odd episodes, maybe I'm better at it now, which gave it another crack. But Woody, sticking with the Liverpool trend, the beach ball incident.
Yes.
And similar to the Eric Cantona one, I don't think you have to necessarily be a football fan to know of this incident. And so basically, to sum it up, Sunderland on the attack. A Liverpool fan threw a beach ball onto the field. Sunderland continued to attack. No one actually really notices the beach ball other than Pepe Reina in the build-up because it was behind the defensive line. Sunderland score. They run off and celebrate. Liverpool protest. And no one really knows what's going on because no one's ever seen anything like this before. It hits the ball, the beach ball. The ball hits the beach ball and it deflects into the bottom corner and everybody's just stunned. And the thing that gets me, Woody, before we discuss what actually happens, have a listen to this commentary.
Well, what a start for the home side. The ref is a bit contentious. I think what beats Pepe Reina is the little deflection from the shot from Darren Bent off Glenn Johnson. That just flicks it past and gives Reina absolutely no chance. But off screen, there's an argument to the ref from the Liverpool players. Not sure what about because there's nothing wrong. Maybe the balloon on the pitch what interferes with play. But you've got to get on with it. And that's what Darren Bent does and puts the home side ahead.
Now, I get that it's never happened before and we were just talking about how everyone was a little bit stunned. But the commentary here is just 30 seconds of absolute poo. Now, let me explain this. The commentator was pretty much just ignoring the fact that a beach ball was on the ground for a good minute and caused a goal. And he was playing it down as if nothing had happened. It was one of the most bizarre pieces of commentary I've ever heard. And one of the most bizarre pieces of play I've ever seen. And the goal did count, but I wonder what would happen today with VAR.
Yeah, I don't know what would have happened. It's pretty interesting because it goes down as probably Sunderland's most iconic goal in the Premier League, if we're being real here. It's just inexplicable, really, to see that happen. And Pepe Reina goes up, and you can see him in the build-up tries to point out to the referee that the beach ball is in the 6-yard box. And then I don't know. I don't know how it didn't get overturned either. I understand that whatever's on the pitch serves as part of the pitch, but you know, if you're looking at it, like the shot would have been saved. It was a pretty crap shot.
It was going straight to the keeper.
Yeah, exactly. So the deflection it took was pretty unfair, and it was. It is so funny that a Liverpool fan actually caused a goal against Liverpool, if we're being real. Like, it was a Liverpool beach ball.
That's what makes it super ironic. And I think just quickly, Woody, we look back to just before the season got stopped, Everton's last-minute winner against Man United, that was ruled out because Sigurdsson was, sort of blocking De Gea's view. It's like that gets ruled out, but the beach ball deflecting the ball into the bottom corner doesn't. It's just the game has changed with VAR. So you'd imagine that today that goal definitely would have stuck.
God knows how that went through.
Yeah. I would. Right. This one you wanted to talk about, and pre-recording, I was like, bro, you know this didn't actually happen, but you were like, nah, I want to talk about it anyway. So I'll let you have this one. The little incident with Ashley Young.
Oh, that is a bird having a shit in athlete Ashley Young's mouth. This one went absolutely viral when it happened. Everyone thought that Ashley Young just having a team talk with the armband on his arm, and then a bird has just come along and absolutely sniped him on the lips with his shit. Just weird scenes. But Damo, this sort of blew up the footballing internet, didn't it?
It did, and it's been around for ages because I think it was definitely during the Louis van Gaal era, which means it happened at least 4 seasons ago. And Ashley Young really only defended it a couple of months ago, and he came to speak about what actually happened, and his explanation is probably a bit fair enough. Basically, he claims that he was having, chewing gum that was the same color as bird poo, white, and the camera angle just sort of shows his gum sort of popping out of his mouth at the same time that the bird poo goes past him, behind him. So it sort of looks like it lands on his mouth, but he claims it went, meters behind him, but the camera angle doesn't do it justice, which I sort of believe. But even then, the fact that, he had to get on a media platform, and I'm not talking social media, he was on a genuine interview and talk about that. It's absolutely extraordinary.
Oh, look, to be honest, if you were Ashley Young, you would be defending this one to the hills and back. You'd be dying with the lie to
It's
negate.
definitely the lack of hesitation when it happens as well. So you have to defend it. You just act like nothing happened, which he claims did. But still, it's like, imagine if that did actually happen. He wasn't fussed at all.
Oh, no way. And I swear, if a bird shat in my lips, I would be going crazy. I'd be going crazy.
Gee whiz.
All right, let's move on. And that one is the next one we've got. This one is funny. Neil Warnock chasing down the camera as manager of Cardiff. Oh, this one was
this
so
season,
funny.
oh my god.
The
season Cardiff had was honestly just like so unlucky, but this sort of stuff is what it's remembered for. Like last season, Cardiff actually played some decent football towards the end, and their poor start probably cost them staying up, but far out, man. Like some of the stuff that Warnock got up to in his last few weeks, that man just didn't care anymore. Like he knew it was over. So some of the stuff he was doing was just so funny.
He was just taking the piss, and when I was doing a bit of research for this as well, it reminded me of this meme that went around where someone had clipped Neil Warnock into the Bittersweet Symphony music video. You know, when I think Verve is walking down the pathway and then he's hitting people, and then it just, you see Neil Warnock's head just in that place. It is just so funny. He just didn't give a shit, did he? He just did not care.
He'd lost the plot. I think, looking back, he probably won't have regrets because I don't think it was necessarily embarrassing. It was more just real unique to the Premier League. No one had really seen any sort of manager go down that path. But one manager who did have his moment towards the end of his managerial career as well, that was Louis van Gaal at Old Trafford when the under-21s for Man United beat Arsenal, and what pretty much cost Arsenal the title that season that Leicester won it. I mean, Louis van Gaal was like a father that day. This is how I got to describe this one. He was like a father, and he was riding every challenge. Look at these names: Marcus Rashford on debut, Fosu Mensah, Varela, a young Lingard, Memphis Depay, Paddy McNair. Some of these names that just nowhere near the first squad anymore. When a decision went against this young United team, Louis van Gaal wasn't too happy about it, was he, Woodrow?
Nah. He was not, and he went up to the fourth referee and just spitting chips, had his notebook in hand, and then next minute, you just see the camera pan to him, and he's on the floor. He's just ass down on the ground, staring at the fourth referee, going, "Look at me! What's happening?" I remember the crowd went absolutely bonkers. It was so funny to see. So funny to see a manager taking a dive.
It was funny, as in, like, Louis van Gaal, probably the more calm managers mid-game you'll see, rarely gets out of his seat to do that. It was hilarious. Woodrow, this one is, we're getting into the areas now of players scoring against their former clubs, and there's sort of two ways that you can go about it, maybe three. One is, putting your hands up, almost apologising for scoring, and the other way to do it is doing it Adebayor style. So Lampard against Chelsea or Adebayor against Arsenal. Which one is your preferred goal?
My one would have to be Adebayor. He's just infamous. So let's get stuck into that one before we get stuck into the Lampard goal. So everyone knows this Adebayor goal when he scored for City against Arsenal. Of course, he scored against his old side in 2009, and he ran the whole length of the pitch to do a knee slide in front of the Arsenal away section. And I'm fairly sure I've just seen this egg and lettuce sandwich just being pinged from the top row. It lands just next to him.
The security guards were absolutely scampering to the front of that section. Just like, mate, absolute madmen were about to run on the field and take this bloke's head off. Like, seriously, you'd never seen anything like it. And the yellow card was given to him after that. But, oh my God, that was so funny because it was one of those ones where it took him a good 10 to 15 seconds to get to the away section. And everybody just knew where he was going. And what made it even more funny that, like, he was running past his own teammates. So, like, once he had gone past them, then they started chasing him. So it was like, oh, where's he going? And then just, like, everybody was running towards the Arsenal away section.
I tell you what was even funny. He ran straight past the coaching team as well. So he's just gone straight past the manager on the line, just disregarded him, waving his hands
Mark
all
Hughes was
way.
just like a stunned mullet on the touchline. He was celebrating, but he was like, oh my goodness, like, what is going on?
This is so funny. But let's get stuck into another iconic City moment, and that was Lampard scoring for Man City against Chelsea.
What made it real interesting was that Chelsea at the time were league title favourites, and they did end up going on to win the title. But one thing that's worth noting is that goal sort of put the league on its head a little bit. It was that season where Cesc Fabregas absolutely turned it on for Jose, and probably Fabregas's last real peak fitness season, and they dominated the league that season for most part of it. But they did have a hiccup around the time, and it was almost their legend Frank Lampard who undid all the good work, but it wasn't to be. But still, I just remember that was the same day that Leicester scored 5 against Man United. So that was one of the more crazy days of the season back in 15-16, I believe it was. Oh, wait, no, sorry, 14-15. My apologies.
And just the absolute irony of Lampard about to undo Chelsea's season as well. It's pretty funny in tale, and actually fortunate it didn't happen, because who knows, if he had undid their season, how would he have been received by Chelsea fans as a legend going into the future? Who knows? I still hear Manchester City fans calling Frank Lampard a City legend, and they can just believe what they want, whatever helps them sleep at night. Speaking of legends, though, the Dre Woodruff, courtesy of Peter Crouch podcast. Don't bleep this out, but it's the motherfucking DRE. Andre Mariner sends off Kieran Gibbs instead of Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Damo, this was probably one of the funniest moments in our Premier League memories. It was outrageous. Oh.
Honestly, dude, it didn't help that Arsenal ended up losing 6-0 that game, and probably actually, you know what? It didn't help Arsenal, but it probably helped the Dre, because could you imagine if the score was real close and that could have been the difference in the result? But far out. I mean, after the game, he said he was disappointed that he made the error. It's like a bit of an understatement, mate. You've literally, it's not that hard. They have numbers on their back. They don't look the same.
I'm pretty sure Ox was number 15 and Kieran Gibbs was 28. And I don't know if you can read either, but Oxlade-Chamberlain on the back of her jersey looks a bit different to Gibbs. I actually tell you what, if you were Kieran Gibbs and Oxlade-Chamberlain, you would have to be laughing, because they both look like Ninja Turtles, and and you would have to be just, as Gibbs is walking back into the tunnel, you sort of just have to sit there and be like, geez, this actually has an element of banter to it. Like, surely this is just a big joke from Big Mariner.
What would you even do as Gibbs? Like, do you just cop it and be like, all right, fine, I'll do this for Ox? Or do you just completely burn your teammate? Be like, mate, it was him. Send him off. Like, how do you even go about that? And what's the Ox doing? Just sitting there, just being like, oh yeah, I'll stay out here if that's all right. Like, how awkward would that have been after the game? Like, oi mate, like, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you say something? Like, it's just bizarre how you approach that after the game. But surely, as you said, Woody, there's definitely an element of comedy to it, and I'm sure they banter about it today. Not that they play with each other anymore, but there's definitely a story for the grandkids in that.
Yeah, and it was so funny because the save that Oxlade-Chamberlain actually made against Hazard's shot was pretty elite. Because he was going the wrong way, and he ended up flicking the wrong way and made a great save. I don't know if it was going in that Hazard shot, but however, he did save what was a probable Chelsea goal. It was just so funny. But yeah, they went on to get absolutely spanked 6-0, as you already said, Damon, which would have been more of a spit in the face than the sending off, I reckon. But I think something that is bit more of a spit in the face would be Luis Suarez having a dive in front of David Moyes.
Mate, we could probably pinpoint 10 to 15 moments just from this guy alone in his 3 or 4 seasons in the Premier League. I mean, every couple of weeks something would happen with a headline regarding Luis Suarez. But yeah, the diving in front of David Moyes. Basically, David Moyes suggested that Luis Suarez was a bit of a diver in the build-up to the Merseyside derby.
I think he actually said it about 2 or 3 times.
Was it 2012? It would have been 2012.
Yeah, it would have been 2012, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, of course, Suarez being Suarez, scored in a big game and made it known to David Moyes that he wasn't too happy with the comments that were made midweek and pretty went down like a salmon, didn't he?
Yeah, mate.
Right in front of the Everton bench.
He did the silly salmon right in front of David Moyes. And then when he got on the ground, he sort of put out his hands, lifted up his head and like stared at David Moyes. I'd love to know what came out of his mouth. Probably a bit of profanity, but Damon, would you do that? Would you dive in front of someone that if they made those sort of comments consistently about you?
I don't know. I think I'm more of a fan of just the traditional shush, just the putting the finger up into the lips. But I think given the type of character Luis Suarez has, shown to be over the years, I think if he did the shush, it wouldn't have been, that interesting because Luis Suarez just trying to stir some stuff again. But this time, he's just taken it to another level. And that's why we talk about it like freaking 8 years later. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's what I rate about it. So I think the character matched the act perfectly. Yeah. But see, someone with a little bit of a less vibe about him in terms of, shithousery, I think you could have gotten away with just the finger to the lips shushing. But another moment that he didn't get his fingers close to his mouth, but he got Ivanovic's arm close to his mouth, and it took a big chunk, didn't he, Woodrow?
Yeah, it was Luis Suarez biting Branislav Ivanovic in Liverpool versus Chelsea back way when, Damo, this kicked off the Chompers Suarez sort of discussion. Because this was, I think he did this, it was a World Cup year, and then he backed it up in the World Cup. It was just so funny to see because, also funny but also appalling because to bite someone, it's pretty manky. I'm not gonna. It's very manky. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, it's so low. I think back to I think it was Chiellini he might have bitten, or Bonucci. I can't remember which one. It was definitely against Italy. But yeah, in that season before, a bit Ivanovic, and it really is the lowest of acts up there with spitting. And it's just bizarre that, it's almost animal-like. It is animal-like when players do this, but it even happening once in a decade is too much. But the fact that it's happened multiple times in the Premier League era, sometimes with the same bloke, is just extraordinary. And, I'm not going to sit here and roast Luis Suarez about it. It happened years ago, and he's a fantastic player, and his accolades show it. But goodness me, some of the stuff that bloke's done over the years, especially in the Premier League, is nothing short of, as I said, animal-like. All right, Woody, let's wrap this one up because it's probably going to be the longest mini we've done, and rightly so, because it's definitely the funnest we've done, I reckon, personally. And we will see everybody listening now in a few days' time with the biggest episode in Nightclub history. And I think we've said this multiple times across the last few episodes, but we cannot understate this. It's just as big, maybe not as big as it's going to get for the Nightclub, but definitely the biggest it's been, in the history. History. Just keep saying that word.
Mate, for sure. This is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Mate, we could not go through biggest moments without dropping that. But yes, Damo, it is absolutely huge. We've got the best A-League midfielder coming on the show. That is Cam Devlin. Sammy has absolutely sorted us out through his connections. And I'm so keen for this and keen to see what he has to say as well, because he is really one of the biggest personalities in the A-League as well. He is going to be so great to talk to.
Mate, you hear things down the grapevine, and apparently he's a ripper bloke. So I'm very, very keen to have a chat with him. It's going to be great fun. And of course, as I said, keen to have a chat to Sammy to see what he's been up to. But until then, Woody, if people want to hit us up on the socials, where can they find us?
You can find us at Premier League Nightclub on the Insta. And Damo, where can you find us on the Twitter?
You can find us on the Twitter at PL Nightclub, or search us on Facebook. We will be there. And just find out when that episode drops with Cam Devlin. Make sure you follow us on whatever socials you use, and subscribe and follow us wherever you listen. So until then, Woodra, I'm out of here.
Yes, guys, thank you very much for being at the Nightclub. That wraps up the minis. We'll see you on Thursday. Thank you very much for tuning in.